Hello. Today, for camping gear, I'm going to show you how to set up a guy line, what guy lines are important for, which, by the way, are completely optional. But guy lines are for adding extra stability. Some tents have quite a lot. I currently have a tent that has 6 guy line points, which is quite a lot, but they add a lot of extra stability. They can be a hazard around the camps. I have one set up right here, so this tent has 4 guy line points, technically 2, because guy line points classify as a point above 1 foot. This is obviously not above 1 foot. This is just to stretch out the vestibule so that it makes it a little bit more taut, a little bit more water resistant, and it provides just a little bit more airflow. But guy lines, generally it'll be pretty clear that there's a guy line point because it'll have a loop somewhat like that. Obviously for different brands it'll be different, but find something like this. This is not a guy line point. This is just a point where you can roll up your vestibule and have loops. There's something that goes on the inside, and the loops keep it from going in. So I have those set up right here. My tent has 2 on each vestibule, which is a nice feature, but it'll be clear what's a guy line point and what's just a loop for these little hooks to keep your vestibule open. So, for getting a vestibule, the first part is selecting what kind of cord. I've used paracord, reflective cord, and right now I just use the stuff that Marmot gave me that came with it. And sometimes you'll have tensioners, sometimes you'll have just nothing. So there's different knots that you can use. I use the taut line because it doesn't slip and you can just easily slide it up and down the rope. Otherwise I use tensioners. I like to use these that Marmot gave me, or I use the MSR cam ring tensioners, which are a little expensive, so I stopped using them. But generally you don't want to have natural rope, because natural rope it frays a lot easier. It can be victim to decay, and when it gets wet it doesn't dry out very well. So you're gonna want nylon or something like that. Also, you don't want something super thick because that's expensive and obviously it won't work, and it's going to be very heavy. So there is specific cords that they build for guy lines. Generally it'll be ultralight, something like that. It'll be pretty clear. It might come with a set of tensioners or not, depends, whatever you get. But I'm going to show you how to tie a taut line pretty much, and how to use these tensioners, because a lot of different brands use this. There's so many different versions of them because almost every brand makes them, and sometimes they can be hard to use. I know that I had a hard time learning how to use it. So first I'm just going to scoot up and I'm just going to show how to tie a taut line, and then I'm going to go through it in a few different steps. Alright, so that's the taut line. I'm going to show you why it's useful, because it can just easily slide up and down. Oops. There. So, it's very useful. Now I'm going to go down here, adjust my tripod 1 second. Oh, still haven't figured out this tripod. Don't quite know what does what, because there's about 4 different knobs down here. So, tying a taut line, make sure that I have the angle right. So, first, going to scoot this forward. Alright, so tying a taut line is very easy. You just want to have a loop, and then find a point on the loop, just a little bit of rope, then go in on the inside of the rope, loop it around once, twice. If you need to, give it a little bit more rope, and then around, under, and then one loop on the outside. And that's pretty much it, how you tie a taut line. Just loosen it up. And right now this rope is too short because it had a tensioner, which uses a lot less rope. So then after that, you just stake it into the ground, which is fairly easy. I'm not using the stakes for the guylines that go with my tent because no company will give you enough to stake in guylines to. Alright, there it is. It's pretty simple. So now I'm going to use this really confusing tensioner. It's so simple. I should probably be embarrassed to say that it gave me trouble, but you're gonna need one taut line or bowline or whatever you use. I like bowlines, but I can't tie them because it's been years since I've had to tie one. So I'm just gonna keep this taut line and untie that one. Alright, there you go. And untie this one too, because that end will go through the rope, but I'm just going to end up tying that one again anyway. So, what you're going to do, it's very easy. Just take one end of the rope, put it through, knot it. Depending on the rope, you might have to knot it a few times because they don't offer, they're not wide enough so that where you knot it, it won't slip through. But just make sure that it doesn't fit through the end. And then, you put it through the middle one like that. And then without creating any knots or loops or anything, put it through the other end. So this is pretty easy. All you have to do after that is tie some kind of knot, bowline, 2.5 hitches, taut hitch, whatever you need to tie. And with some ropes, which is more with natural ropes, so it's most likely that you're not going to be able to do this with synthetic ropes. You might even be able to do an eye splice. And I love eye splices because they will never ever undone, because no matter how much, whenever you put stress on it, an eye splice just becomes stronger, which is awesome. So I'm just going to tie a knot. Which I am currently failing at. Alright, there it is. And these tensioners are a pain in the ass. They're kind of hard to use. Sometimes you even have to just loosen this manually, even though with most tensioners you can just pull it up and down as you please. So just do that. and it won't slide, and then you stake it into the ground. There you have it. When you pluck it, it should make some sort of a note. I'm not really quite sure if you can hear that, but yeah, that's how it should sound. They should be really taut, as the goal is to pull out the rainfly, make it secure in more locations. This tent, just you think it's nice. This is the MSR Firefly. The review for this tent should be posted soon, but I'm having some issues with my camera and I cannot access the files for it yet, so that doesn't matter. That's irrelevant to this. So basically, the ultimate goal of guylines is to make the tent more secure. That's why they're popular in tents that are designed for very windy climates, such as tents for mountains. And so you'll see that those have more guylines, but this wasn't built for a mountain, so it doesn't have very many guiline points. But thanks for watching. Bye.